Well, hello. The premise of this show is that I critique a nation's banknotes, or at least ramble disjointedly about them for however long I feel like. That's not really, though, I wanted to start looking at Belgian money. That was to settle the age-old "there are no famous Belgians" question. Yeah, there's Jackie it, but he's principally famous for being the one famous Belgian people go to when they say there are no famous Belgians. I'm not sure what you call that. There are actual famous people, then there are people famous for being famous. He is kind of famous for being sort of famous, but not really. And Tintin's fiction will be quiet. Ultimately, though, if there are no famous Belgians, then who do the Belgians consider famous enough to put on their money? Let's examine this and put this question to bed once and for all. 100 francs. James Ensor. I'm drawing a blank here. Okay, he's an artist, but not one that I'm familiar with. Goes from masks and skeletons to being political and scatological, and was apparently liked enough to be made of pattern. This is him peeing on a wall with "Ensor is a madman" written on it, which I would respect in a punk rock kind of way. Then I remember Brussels' most famous public monument. 200 francs. Adolf Sax. You don't know this guy, but you do know his work. You do. He invented the saxophone. This is not someone you should be putting on your money. If inventing the saxophone is one of your claims to fame as a country, you should keep quiet about it. The Bank of England put George Stephenson on a fiver, and he didn't invent the steam engine or the railway, but he is hugely important in the history of both of those, without which the modern world would not have developed the way it did. I have paid every iteration of civilization, every main iteration anyway, and the saxophone does not show up once as a tech advance. Neither is Adolf Sax ever available as a great person. A world without Adolf Sax would have been less jazzy and less funky, and Moldavia would be about 73% less interesting, but that's not exactly something you build an alternate history or a parallel universe around. Unless the fact that the world is almost entirely the same apart from this one trivial change is the thing that's supposed to unnerve you. He also invented the sax tromba, sax horn, and sax tuba. So basically he's the 19th century brass instrument equivalent of Donald Trump in that regard, and I guess no others. Nothing he made ever caught on as an orchestral instrument, which I suppose is why I've never heard of them, but apparently some are used in brass bands, and the sax tuba was the most important band instrument in the War of Northern Aggression. Sorry, slaveholders' rebellion, sorry, American Civil War. You get the idea. Also, sax tuba is a 7-letter word with an X you can use in Scrabble. You're welcome. Let's be honest here, he named his most famous invention after himself, and he isn't even known for inventing it. That's an impressive achievement in non-achievement right there. If someone had earlier told you a saxophone was invented by a guy called Sax, you might think, story checks out. And I suppose there may have been a guy called Sax, now I've thought about it, but maybe it came from Saxony. I've honestly never thought about it before today. He's still doing better, however, with his collaborators and contemporaries Monsieur Trombe and Madame Zylo, who will not know to find out anything about them. 500 francs, René Magritte. This is not a banknote. Yes, that guy. There is a street in Brussels called Ceci n'est pas un rue. I love that. It's much better than Rue René Magritte. Thumbs up. Thumbs up in a non-dog specific way. I wonder if there is Bizarro René Magritte, whose catchphrase is "This is a pipe." Further wonder if there is a film called C'était pas un rendezvous, which is just one take of a guy crossing Paris by public transport at 5 in the morning, and getting there to find his girl is gone. 1,000 francs. Constant Permet. Another artist I've never heard of. Sorry. Wikipedia tells me he was important in Flemish Expressionism. Not normal Expressionism, Flemish Expressionism. We're not sure how Flemish Expressionism differs from normal Expressionism exactly. I think it may be mostly about resenting Lower Loon Expressionists in the studio down the street. Also, this sounds weirdly close to a guy swearing in Finnish. 2,000 francs. Victor Horta. Gotta be honest, searching for Horta gets you a place in the Azores or references to that one silicon-based rug monster from Star Trek until you hit the second page. Then you discover his museum is open only in the afternoons for 4 days a week and all day at the weekend. This suggests to me that it is not a Belgian equivalent of Graceland with hordes of Victor Horta fans making pilgrimage. Okay, you helped invent Art Nouveau, but you're a loser, Horta. The Magritte Museum is open 7 full days a week. Well, full European days starting at 10 a.m. Still don't think they have a chapel where you can get married by a Magritte impersonator who concludes by saying, "You are now not man and wife." And I doubt there's a film called 4,828 kilometres to the Horta Museum, especially as how I'd have to start somewhere around Baghdad. Mind you, 3,000 miles from Graceland will put you in, say, the Yukon or Costa Rica. Honestly, Belgium is not a country one associates with artists, apart from Hergé, though the Bank of Belgium sure wanted you to think so. France, yes. Netherlands, yes. Italy, certainly. But Belgium, no. These guys sound like some nth-grade knockoff of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, using animal and martial art combinations that haven't been used yet, and Belgium is one of the few available countries left to take artists from. Ensor, Magritte, Permec, Hotter, they are prepubescent paraplegic pentaxillate pochetta pangolins. 10,000 francs. Albert II and Queen Paola. If you put the reigning monarchs on a note and no one else, you have officially run out of ideas. Older series. 20. King Badwin. See above. 50. King Badwin and Queen Fabiola. See above. Also, Queen Fabiola. I have a hard time believing that's a real person's name, but I can't go anywhere with that because Least Majesty, so you're on your own for that one. 100. Hendrik Bayat. Architectural design for head office of the National Bank of Belgium. I presume this is the same sort of central banker in joke that led the Bank of England to put Sir John Houblon on 50, and which they could get away with because most people will go through their lives without ever seeing one. Central banker get-together must be a right barrel of laughs, but I guess you really have to blow off steam and cut loose after a hard day plotting to sell out humanity to Jewish losing people from beyond the stars. Also looks really like Professor Calculus. I should point out that one of his buildings in Brussels, a city noted for no one ever going, let's see the great architecture of Brussels, is a thing called La Maison du Chat, or the House of Cats. At time of writing, there is not an English Wikipedia entry for that place, which just goes to show how little personality this guy has. I have lived on the internet since 1994, and if I have learned anything from that, it's if you build a thing called the House of Cats and it's in any way interesting, you end up appointed God Emperor of Space. Gaudi has built a thing called the Casa del Gats, you'd know about it. Might not be finished yet, but you would know it existed. 100. Lambert Lombard. He has that alliteration thing going on, so he should be a Marvel character or one of Superman's old lovers because of that double L. No, Renaissance artist who worked for the Prince Bishop of Liège, back when that was some huge part of the country because Belgium didn't exist as such just back then. 100. Bernard van Orly. Another Renaissance artist from when the Low Countries had some artists. Amongst other things, did a portrait of Charles V that is nowhere near as good as the ones Titian did. Yeah, Charles V, the guy with the Habsburg lip because his family tree is less a tree and more like the mess of cables under a desk or behind a TV. Yeah, go ahead, show him profile so he looks like a cartoon character. Good choice, Bernard, you dork. 500. Constantin Meunier. I honestly thought he was a physicist, but no, another artist. 19th century industrial realist influenced by Courbet. Unlike Courbet, did not do a painting that's basically just lady bits. Cool. 1000. Mercator. Legitimate scholar, inventor of the Atlas. Gets a bad press these days because his iconic map projection greatly distorts the size and therefore apparent importance of high latitudes versus the tropics, and is therefore a tool of cartographic imperialism at the hands of people whose only criteria for selecting a world map for a wall is it a rectangle? That's hardly his fault. It's a projection designed so that a straight line course on the map is the same direction as a straight line course you take in reality. That Greenland is bigger than Africa is irrelevant to that. Good navigation is extremely important when you are finding indigenous people to exploit. Should also point out that Mercator has a card in Here I Stand. Not an event that anyone plays, mind you, because by the time it comes out, New World has usually been more thoroughly penetrated by smelly European adventurers than your mum. Still, you don't see Arno Peters or James Guard in the game anyway, so there. 1000. André Ernest Modeste Gretry. Composer from Liège, wrote opera comique, which are not necessarily funny, they're just the ones that have spoken dialogue, and in theory only consist of good bits because they have no recitative. And recitative is the stuff that sounds like this because you've had a high point and now we have to have dialogue and exposition, but both singer and composer are putting minimum effort into this because the form demands it, and this is singing in the same way packing peanuts are nutrition. Well, it worked from 1767 onwards in France, took French nationality. Next. 5000. Guido Gezelle. What? Another alliterative Marvel character? Like he's the New Jersey knockoff of Spider-Man, like an Italian-American who was bitten by a radioactive gazelle. Or a gazelle who was bitten by a radioactive cast member of Jersey Shore. Can't decide which of those I like better, to be honest. Either way, he's probably got a better power set than New Jersey, because you can't really web sling around a power imbalance chasing the Jersey Devil. Anyway, Wikipedia tells me this: for his linguistic mastery, Goethe is considered one of the most important poets of Dutch literature. Because there's one thing the Dutch are famous for, it's their poetry, that and their mountaineering. 5,000. Andreas Vesalius. We're going to finish strong. No, we are. I know you've never heard of him, but you should have. He's credited as the father of modern anatomy, but not, so far as I'm aware, a several times great grandfather of repeated English. In case you don't think that's a big deal, amongst his accomplishments are proving that men do not in fact have more teeth than women. Hello, dog. Neither do women have one more rib than men, because God made Eve from one of Adam's ribs. The fact that nobody had previously checked this irrefutably verifiable information just shows how necessary someone like Vesalius was to free science from hitherto untested established dogma. Of course, in Mississippi, the one textbook we all have to share probably still says women have one more rib and fewer teeth. And in Kansas, you are legally obliged to teach the controversy.